welcome back. It's been a couple hours now with my ciabatta sitting in the bucket here. Now it's time to weigh it out and shape them into loaves. So I'm making 8 loaves, and I'm putting it on this cloth. This is called a cooching cloth, and it's made of linen. And you really need to use linen when you're doing this. It's the least likely for the dough to stick to. Anything else, and it's going to be a bloody mess trying to clean it up. Now, as I mentioned, this is one of the easiest breads to deal with, especially for a new person to making bread. And one of the reasons for that is because it's just very forgiving in its shape. And you don't really have to worry about getting some precise shape with this bread. If you've gone into a bakery where they do make handmade bread and you're looking for something like a ciabatta, you'll see that there are all sorts of shapes. Because this batter is so loose, there's only so much control you can get with the shape. Now, I'm making 600 gram loaves. It's probably going to be a little bit more than that because, as I mentioned in mixing and stretching, I added more water this time than my usual recipe calls for, just because the flour was really dry. So I've got more weight here than normal, so I'll probably make fatter loaves this time. 2, 4, 6, 8. Well, not too bad actually. This isn't rocket science, so. That's as precise as it needs to be. Now, I normally use the back side of my table scraper to close up the bread when I'm making into loaves like this. But this stuff is so light, and I'm only doing 8, it's fine. I use the scraper for most of the bread when I'm shaping up my loaves. Because I have a bit of arthritis in my thumb joints, and if I use the heel of my hand a few hundred times during the day, that starts to hurt like stink. So I use the back of this. But these are, I'm only making 8 loaves of bread, and this is really, really light, soft bread, so it's not hard on my hands. Now, I'll probably make another video that shows a little bit more detail of how I shape my loaves. Everybody does it a little bit differently, I'm pretty sure. I like this particular method. It gives me good control over the bread, over the quantity that I have under my hand here, and allows me to adjust the shape of it as I go, so I get a reasonably even loaf for ones that are where that becomes a little bit more important. Use lots of flour with this. It's still a pretty juicy dough, and some of that will leak into the cooching cloth. But you don't really need to get all fussy about the shape. You slap these together, and they're only going to rise for about an hour or so. A little bit longer today just because it's a cool day. It's beautiful and sunny out, but it's still cold. First day of winter actually this year. And it's the last one. Now I don't have a proofer. I just proof in the room. That can take a little bit longer, but I'm used to that. I do use shrink wrap though. Like this, just loosely covered over the bread so it doesn't dry out. And I'll reuse this stuff for a fair while. So they're all tucked away like that, covered over, and about an hour or so from now I'll be able to stick them in the oven, and by that time the oven should be cool enough to be able to put this in. And ciabatta is one of the first breads that I'll put in my oven when it's the hottest. This bread can tolerate a nice high heat, and actually it prefers it, and then you get a nice oven spring out of it. Many of the other breads that I do, especially the heavier breads, prefer a cooler oven.